L'Assemblée va...
The Assembly will now hear the address of His Excellency Mr. Hage Geingob, President of the Republic of Namibia. May I request a protocol to escort His Excellency, the President.
Au nom de l'Assemblée générale,
On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Mr. Hage Geingob, President of the Republic of Namibia, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Mr. Miroslav Lajcek, President of the 72nd session of the United Nations General Assembly, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Mr. Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of United Nations, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, yesterday you made a profound statement in saying, and I quote, "The UN was created for people. Its job is to help people who are striving for peace and decent life on sustainable climate," unquote. Namibia congratulates you on your election as President of 72nd session of this Assembly. We pledge our full support to advancing a people-centered approach to doing business in the United Nations. We also commend His Excellency Peter Thompson for his excellent stewardship during his tenure as President of the General Assembly. Your Excellency Secretary General, yesterday you stressed your commitment towards global unity and multilateralism by saying, and I quote, "We call ourselves the international community. We must act as one because only together as United Nations can we fulfill the promise of the Charter and advance human dignity for all," unquote. As the people of Namibia, we will do everything within our capabilities to support your noble cause during your tenure as Secretary General of this organization. We also congratulate Madame Amina Mohammed, a daughter of Africa, for her well-deserved appointment as Deputy Secretary General. Let us also not forget His Excellency Ban Ki-moon for the sterling job he did during his tenure as Secretary General. Mr. President, development that is not driven by the people and does not translate in improved living conditions for all people is a meaningless development. Moreover, development that does not reach all people in an equitable manner will only undermine the peace and stability necessary for sustainable development. Growing income disparity between nations and within nations poses the greatest threat for peace within our countries and globally. In Namibia, we overcame the inhumane scourge of colonial oppression and racial segregation. Through a deliberate policy of national reconciliation, we succeeded in entrenching peace, security, and stability as the pillars of our democracy. We also made significant progress in reducing absolute and relative poverty during the past 27 years. Poverty has declined from a high of 70% in 1993 to 18% in 2015. This was in part due to the introduction of a wide range of social safety nets that cover close to 16% of the entire population. While income inequality has also declined during the same period, it did not decline by the same magnitude as poverty. We have come to realize that as long as we continue to have poverty in Namibia, even if it is just 10%, we can never have lasting peace and social justice. Similarly, as long as the wealth of the country is disproportionately in the hands of a few, we cannot have lasting peace and stability. It is for this reason that we have declared full-scale war against poverty and income inequality. Similarly, we have declared full-scale war against corruption, because corruption is one of the root causes of poverty and inequality. In line with the belief that people must be at the center of development, we have coined the phrase that no Namibians should feel left out. The logic is simple. For inclusivity spells harmony and peace, whereas exclusivity spells disaster, conflict, and potential war. We therefore commend you, Mr. President, for the choice of theme for this session. Quote unquote, focusing on people, striving for peace and decent life for all on sustainable planet. Mr. President, in a climate of ever-increasing uncertainty and unpredictability, it is incumbent on world leaders to renew faith in multilateralism. The United Nations matters most because it is at the center of the needs and desires of humanity. Therefore, it must be inclusive by including Africa at the highest decision-making level. By failing to do this, the UN stands a risk of losing its respectability. The only sure way to restore trust in the UN will be for Security Council to become more inclusive. The people of Namibia can testify to the importance of multilateralism. Namibia is a child of international solidarity, conceived by valiant struggle of the patriots of Namibia, delivered by Resolution 435 and midwifed by the United Nations. Today, thanks to the support of the international community, we are an independent nation, founded upon the principle of democracy, unity, stability, peace, and rule of law. People-centered development should not only extend to a small part of the population. It must cover all demographic components. Too often, the largest demographic component in our societies is namely our mothers, our sisters, and our daughters, who are sometimes excluded from development. We in Namibia believe that gender equity is equally important for a stable and harmonious society. In this regard, a policy decision by the ruling party to introduce a 50-50 representation at all party levels has led to a significant improvement of the representation of females to 48% in Namibia's National Assembly. This is the second highest level of representation on the continent and amongst the top 5 in the world. To give further meaning to these policy directives, women have also been appointed in key positions in the executive. These include a very young Prime Minister and a Deputy Prime Minister who is also the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. The Minister and Deputy Minister of Education, Arts and Culture, the Minister and Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology, the Minister and Deputy Minister of Urban and Rural Development, and the Minister of Home Affairs and Immigration. Most powerful positions. Another significant demographic component that we must not neglect is the youth. In Namibia, we value the empowerment of the youth. Many of the so-called older guard have been groomed, well prepared in the structures of the ruling party and government before they were assigned higher responsibilities. This practice continues with a number of deputy ministers that are youthful, while our Attorney General is one of the youngest in the world. Very soon, the last crop of the Tanganyika group, that is the freedom fighters from 60s who were known as Tanganyika group, including myself, will make way for the new breed. Mr. President, when we adopted Agenda 2030 and acceded to the 2015 Paris Agreement, we not only reaffirmed the centrality of multilateralism, but we also reaffirmed the reality of climate change. What happened in Sierra Leone, the Caribbean, and some parts of the United States is a grim reminder, and of course I can add now, right now, the earthquake in Mexico. It's a grim reminder that climate change is real. We witness the stripping away of human dignity, security, and hope. We must therefore increase our resolve to address the challenges of climate change. Mr. President, to achieve the ambitions of living on a sustainable climate, peace, progress, processes, and international peace building must be strengthened. We also recognize the contribution of women in promoting global peace, both in peace negotiations and active participation in peace missions. Namibia supports efforts to increase the representation of women in peace missions around the world, especially in leadership positions. Out of 52 UN peacekeeping and special political missions, 26 are in Africa. Therefore, we recognize the institutional partnership between the UN Security Council and the African Union in the maintenance of international peace and security. This not only enhances cooperation between the two institutions, but also adds greater legitimacy to the decisions taken by the Security Council on Africa. Africa should not only be seen as a source of precious primary commodities, but an important and equal partner of the international community with a concrete contribution to make. In this context, we welcome the recent agreement between Secretary General and the Chairperson of the African Union Commission to enhance coordination between the African Union and the United Nations. Namibia stands together with the international consensus that the Israeli occupation of Palestine must end. We reiterate that statehood and independence are the national, inalienable, and legal rights of the Palestinian people. We therefore join the call for the two-state solution to be pursued with renewed vigor and determination. Similarly, the people of Western Sahara cannot continue to have their inalienable rights to self-determination and national independence denied. Namibia therefore reaffirms its full and unequivocal support for the rights of the people of the Western Sahara to self-determination. We call for the urgent implementation of all Security Council and General Assembly resolutions with the aim of holding a free and fair referendum in Western Sahara. Mr. President, over the past several years, Namibia has been noting the growing rapprochement between Cuba and the United States, culminating in the reopening of embassies between the two countries. We believe that these efforts should lead to a full lifting of economic and financial embargo against the Republic of Cuba and its people, who have the right to pursue peace and decent life. Mr. President, Namibia is committed to supporting this organization to achieve global peace. As Albert Einstein once said, and I quote, "Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved through understanding," unquote. Let us therefore try to be more tolerant by embracing diverse views through dialogue and understanding, before hastily embarking on a path of force, which only lead to conflict and eventually war. The United Nations is a great social experiment which features small and large nations coexisting in peace and harmony. If United Nations did not exist today, I would have definitely called for such an organization to be created. Let us continue to treasure the unity of United Nations, for it is only through unity that we will bring about a world free from fear and conflict. It is only through unity that we will bring about a world free from hunger and poverty. It is only through unity that we will deliver a sustainable planet for our children and their children. I thank you for giving me the floor. Thank you.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank His Excellency, Mr. Hage Geingob, President of the Republic of Namibia, for his address to the Assembly. May I request representatives to remain seated while we greet the Head of State.